Welcome, everybody, to Family History Fanatics. We're going to be going over a little bit about MyHeritage and just doing an overview of where they are at, maybe some of the things that have changed, just to get you all started. Just is going to give you links to everything, and you can see that the links are both across the top here. If you go to the menu, they're the same links to different things, and in the overview page, there are in the main section those links. All those links are to the same thing. So if you're going to one, you don't need to go back to the other to try to go to the other. If it says your DNA matches on this one or this one or this one up here, it's all going to the same thing. So lots of great ways to be able to get to where you're going. You should be able to find a menu or a link to what you want on just about anything. Now, the overview page gives you some more graphical interface as far as what you're seeing. This discover your ancient origins. These are not going to be so much like your ethnicity results where they're pinpointing a certain thing, because when you look at something like, hey, hunter-gatherer, those were all over. And what it has to do is different areas had different populations of these groups, that there was some intermixing, but actually surprisingly not as much as you would think. So for instance, Europe originally, actually the whole world was originally populated by hunter-gatherers. But as the new farmers, the agriculture people from really the Caucasus and the Middle East started moving into Europe, they pushed those hunter-gatherers out. Now, some of them remained. And so what you are, or what I am, or what anybody is, depends on what your ancestors were and what population groups they might have been from. So this will be interesting to see. From a genealogy standpoint, this is going to have no value. It's not going to help you solve any genealogy problems. This is in the same category as your ethnicity estimates. That is, hey, it's a nice thing that DNA can tell you a little bit roughly about your ancestry. From a genetic genealogy standpoint, I don't think it is going to be helpful to anybody. Here in the graphical part of our DNA matches, this is one thing that I like that MyHeritage has, is it breaks down your matches into these three different little groups so that you know, if you haven't even looked at the match list, hey, you can see how much you have quickly here. Now, I would like them to break it down slightly more, because what they just do is they do close family. And this is going to be her brother and her two aunts. And then extended family, this is going to be probably first cousins. It would be nice if they did like second cousins also as a separate thing for extended family, because as it is, it's like, hey, these 10, these two groups, you should be able to, even if right now you don't know who they are, you should be able to identify how they're related to you with just a little bit of work. Second cousins, probably you'd be able to identify at least half of them with a little bit of work. And this is like talking about, if you don't know much of anything, but you have some base information. But once you get to distant relatives, when you're talking about everything here from second cousins out to 10th cousins. Well, the vast majority of these 13,000 are going to be this fourth cousin and more distant. So it would be nice to see something here, hey, you've got 56 second cousins, or, 150 second to third cousin possibilities. Because that group there, that's right in between this extended family, which most people that already know who their parents are and maybe their aunts and uncles, they're already going to know or be able to very quickly find out who all these extended family members are. Where genealogy really is actually in this group that's in between here, this second to third, maybe fourth cousins type of thing, that it's not the majority of this by any means. Like I said, it's probably a couple hundred, maybe 300 or 400, but that's where you're really going to be using DNA to try to help you solve where these branches are. The rest of this 10,000, 13,000, you're probably really never going to actually touch or find out. You may, most of them that you do find out is going to be purely by luck chance. When you find an eighth cousin that is through a family tree that you both happen to share, that is pure luck that you both happen to have that out to, you know, 6 great grandparents that you needed to be able to match up how you were related. So it would be nice if there was another one here, but hey, it's giving you something to start with. All right, as we go down, we have locations. So you can see the location of your matches. And this is important to distinguish because we have these ethnicity results. Some people get these confused and they start to think, well, this is where my ancestors are from. No, this is where your matches are reported as living. That doesn't even mean that that is where they're from. For instance, you might have matches that were from France who moved to Sweden, and so they say they live in Sweden, and that's going to increase the Sweden, not going to increase the France necessarily. But for Devin, just in general, knowing that her background is primarily Central European, that she has had relatives or ancestors in the United States and Canada for 100, 150 years at least, I think on all lines. I'm not sure when her most recent one, but it's like your great-great-grandfather, great-great-great-grandfather. So it's back in the 1800s when her most recent immigrant ancestor was. Everybody else is before that. On the other hand, yeah, in general, from what she does know, all of her relatives actually immigrated to the United States and Canada in a 100, 150 year time frame from about the mid 1700s to the middle 1800s. So really almost a 100-year time frame. Maybe we'll say 150 from 1700 to the middle of the 1800s. That's when all of her ancestors immigrated. But you can see, because of knowing that about hers, hey, we expect a lot of matches from the United States. Yep. We expect a lot of matches from the United Kingdom. Yep. Australia is just like the US and United Kingdom, except they're not as populous. So yeah, I expect less there, but a lot of the people that she's related to in the United Kingdom have descendants who immigrated to Australia as well. You see here, Germany, the Netherlands, Norway, Denmark, France. Those are all your middle Europe, Central Europe, where she has ancestors from. Canada. So just in this list of where her matches are is not a surprise at all based on what her known ethnicity is. I mean, you're having to get all the way down here to, we'll say Finland is really the first, that's outside of her known ancestry. Although she does have ancestry that goes back to Sweden, which controlled Finland at part of the time. And so that might be where some of this Finland comes. So really going down this list, Spain, that's probably the next one. It's like, that's an oddball. Hungary, that's probably an oddball. Italy, that's probably an oddball. But you notice they make up so few of her total matches that it's really easy to think that, oh, well, she just matches them because there's a common ancestor that immigrated to one of those places at one time. But it's not like it was a huge population of it. If we saw, let's take Spain, for instance. If instead of 23 on Spain, we had 500 on Spain, I would start to say, okay, there is something in one of your lines that we're missing, because that's just way too many Spanish relatives that's not showing up in your genealogy. Let's get into the big one, DNA matches. That's the big list that we talked about. The matches in general are sorted first off by the total amount of shared DNA you have. So her brother, she shares the most. The next two are aunts. Then she gets to some cousins and on down from there. Now you have the ability to sort these by others. So for instance, if you're looking at shared segments, the largest segment, or if you want to do it by full name, or if you have a good system that you've already done where you're looking at matches, then the going by the most recent might be where you want, because this is going to be how recently they've come into the system. So these are the ones that you probably haven't looked at. You can see with Devin's, the most recent one was 12 centimorgans, which is to the point of probably not having to worry about looking at it. If you are looking at it in this way, then make sure you do look down that list for your higher ones and don't just discount the list. The first one you see is not as high as what you thought it would be. So let's go back to our shared DNA. So that's how we can sort the list in different ways. The other thing we can do is we can filter out this list. So what you can filter by is you can filter by tree details, relationships, locations, and labels. And each one of these, I believe, is going to have a drop-down menu. Theory of family relativity. This is where they're basically using their AI to match you up. Has smart matches, shared surname, shared place, or even if you're just looking for people that have a family tree. If you don't have a family tree on MyHeritage, you want to put a family tree on MyHeritage and link your DNA to that. Let's look at relationships. Okay, close family, extended family, distant relatives. So just those three categories that they had at the beginning. Locations, this is where the location of the person is reported to be. Not necessarily where they were born, but where they reportedly are. And then labels. Labels are what you put on. So if you have organized your matches in different ways, by color coding, then you can be looking at that group of matches. Okay. So let's go and let's click on a match. So let's scroll down here and find a good one. James Wright. When you click on any one of these matches, it's going to bring up a shared match list. In other words, the list of matches that you and this person both have in common. You're going to share DNA with them at different amounts, though. First off, we have the relationship between you and the match. Devin shares 91 centimorgans with this match. Largest segment is 48 centimorgans. Okay. In this, there's some other information that is really good. So first off is the probable relationship. Now, this is based off of a statistical analysis of the amount of shared centimorgans, the number of segments, and I believe the longest segment. And the other thing I will say is they put this into something that is more understandable than most other websites. So you'll notice the relationship here. This is your parents' second cousin. Well, what is that? Well, that's actually your second cousin once removed. But once people get into the once removed, people get really confused as to what it is, because that once removed is just saying a generation removed. So it could be up, could be down, depending on who you're talking to. Whereas, hey, if we're talking about my parents' second cousin, I can understand that better. And I like that about MyHeritage. Parents' third cousin, your third cousin, or your parents' half second cousin. And you'll notice there's varying percentages here, again, based on the amount of shared DNA, the number of segments, and I believe the largest segment of that. And here is the diagram of where these people fit. So remember, we were saying you have we said your parents' second cousin, that's right there. But it would be your second cousin once removed is what that is. But they make it into a little bit more understandable for you. And we can change this. So probabilities. So I was getting caught up with these probabilities. So you have a probability of the relationship, but you'll notice that some of these go to a most recent common ancestor. So this is really good for seeing where you should focus your research attention. For instance, while a parent's third cousin is the second most probable relationship among all of these, if we look at the most recent common ancestor, we really should focus our time on your great-great-grandparents to see if we can find a connection there, because they have more combined than the next one up. Okay. Oh, Devin asked if this was based on genetics and not a family tree. And yes, this is based solely on genetics is the probability. Obviously, if you have some more information that maybe even something as simple as the last name, well, that may tell you that, oh, it's this. It's got to be down this line. That might not be the most probable, but it's still possible. All right. Then we get down to the shared match list. Remember, with Ancestry, their shared match list initially just told you this side over here, how much you share with that match, but the other match shares that match. With their Pro Tools, they gave you this bit of information as well. So MyHeritage gives you that already. So you know not only how much DNA you share with this match, but you know how much this other match that you're looking at shares with this match. It's interesting here. Devin said, we said that she shared 91 centimorgans with James Wright, but her brother only shares 27 centimorgans. In fact, Devin shares more with this match than her aunt even does, even though her aunt is going to be a generation closer. And that just shows you some of the randomness of how DNA gets shuffled as we go through generations. Why would her aunt have less than she has? That's just pure chance that your mom had more than your aunt. You can't say, oh, I'm more closely related because I share more DNA. When in this case, no, we know for a fact that you're actually more distantly related than your aunt would be to this match, because your aunt's the next generation above. However, because DNA isn't a perfect dividing every time, you by chance and through your mom just happen to get more. Now, with this, it gives you how they are potentially related. So you have your relation to this match. You have the match's relation, James's relation to this match. Okay, so it's important not to get those two confused. This is all information related to Devin, or you if you're looking at it. And this side is all information related to James or the other shared match that you're looking at. So you wouldn't necessarily expect these to be the same. It could be depending on what the relationship is, but it doesn't have to be. Now on the side here, you'll notice that, hey, there is a triangulated segment. This will go to one of their tools for triangulation. And what this is doing is it is looking at all three of you combined. Do you all have at least one segment that is the same with each other? And so that's what this is highlighting right here. In this part on chromosome number 5, all three of you have the exact same segment. And this is usually good confirmation. And this is, 14 centimorgans long. So we're looking at the triangulation tool here that is looking at all three people. So we've got Devin, James, and Gretchen here. And this is saying that in this chromosome number 5, there's a 14.6 centimorgan segment they all share in common. And this is a very strong indication that they inherited this segment from the same common ancestor. And if they go through and, compare trees, build trees out, then they might be able to find out who that common ancestor is. Now you'll notice that there's some other segments that they don't necessarily share in common. So James shares this with Devin, and this one down here with Devin. Gretchen shares this little bit right here with Devin. From the shared match list, you can get to the triangulated tool segment, by clicking on those links. Now there was a sort by up here. So you can sort these in 3 different ways. Total shared DNA, which I'm guessing is both of them added together. The shared DNA with you and the shared DNA with James. So we could actually, in this case, do the shared DNA with James. And these are going to be the people most closely related to James and how they relate with you. So for instance, we might be able to find James had some brothers in here or some first cousins that would help give us a better clue as to how we are related to him. In this case, the closest relations look like they are just third cousins, and they're still pretty distant to Devin. Now, as we scroll down, we get to the Chromosome Browser. So basically what MyHeritage is doing is they have lots of tools all put onto one page. You just have to go through and separate them out. It's all under DNA segments or DNA matches. So this Chromosome Browser are the segments you share with that match. And they're going to be highlighted here. It was 3 segments, which is what we said. I think it was like 91. And you can be able to go through and look at those. This has the option that you can download that shared DNA if you would like to download that shared DNA. Now that's going to just be for this one match. So you're really going to get a file that has 3 lines showing these 3 segments. Let's go over to the DNA tools. They've got the same things. Now we just took a look at this Chromosome Browser, and this is where you can find the triangulated segments, but you can also compare up to 7 other people. And well, let's just grab a couple here. Now, some of these are going to be unrelated, which is fine. You can see the different colors across the top. Now, the way the triangulation tool works is it's only going to look at triangulated segments that all of them share, not that a portion of them share, but all of them share. So if you have 7 people and you're trying to find a triangulated segment, it's probably not going to work unless you were already really close as far as how you knew these people were related. But even then, you could have all of them related somewhat closely and still not have a triangulated segment between all 7 of them. But yeah, you can see, go through here and see how the different people have chromosomes, different places on there through the colors. Okay, here where you can download your shared DNA info, this is going to be the segment data for all of these 7 people and then what they share with you. So it's still not as good as getting all of your matches segment information, but it is better than having to do it one at a time. Okay, the CM explainer. We already saw a little bit of this, but the nice thing about this is you can now use this with any DNA information that you have. So if you have a match on some other website, you can put information in here. So for instance, let's say I've got some match that's 148 and I am 48 years old, and I don't know how old this other person is, but their photo makes them look like they're 25. You can notice right now that this is using more than just DNA. This is actually taking your age into account. So for instance, generations. And this adds some probability into it for the most recent common ancestor. Most likely, this is a second cousin's child, which would be a second cousin once removed. And you can see that, hey, it's probably at this rate. And we can change this up. Let's just do something here. Notice I'll keep everything the same here, except I'll say I'm 35. So I took 13 years off of my life, and we're going to go from these numbers, 61%, 12%. Let's just try to remember those first couple, second cousin and third cousin, second cousin's child and third cousin. Okay, so most probable is second cousin's child and third cousin. So you'll notice that, hey, those two before, it was most obviously that second cousin's child. Well, now they're pretty equal, 32%, 25%. Now we have 19. And so just that age difference has actually made the probabilities change quite dramatically. This is like I said, a great tool to use, not just with MyHeritage, but with anything. You know your own age. You hopefully can ask any of these matches what their age is, or make an estimate based off of the information that you see, and you have the amount of shared DNA. And yes, that is Larry Jones who created and did a lot of the calculations for this. So great job to him. The AutoClusters. Now, we're not going to go into all of AutoClusters today, but what it is it will give you a report that takes your matches and clusters them into groups of shared matches. So for instance, this box of red, all of these people are related to everybody else for the most part. There's a few that aren't, but they're a cluster. And each one of these colored boxes is a cluster. So that tells you that, hey, we got a family group, that there's a common ancestor that each one of these boxes shares. So again, it's a way, instead of just trying to look at all of your matches all together, you can focus on a subset of matches that you know is based off a group. And for instance, if you know how one of these people is related to you, well, you've got a clue of what line that common ancestor is on, because all the others have to be related through a common ancestor, not necessarily the same ancestor that the one match is. It might be a generation or two more, but they're going to be on the same line. So it's not like you're going to find half of these are from your mom's side and half of them for your dad's side for the same color. They're going to either be all on your, great grandma's line, or your great grandma's line on your mom's side type of thing. So it's a way to consolidate how you're doing your research. And again, this is a free report that you get with MyHeritage. And the Ethnicities Map, this is one that isn't too helpful, I don't think. It shows you from, what most DNA users from that place. So I selected Texas here. You can see that, hey, there's a lot of Central Europe and the British Isles and the Scandinavian countries and Spain, which is exactly what you would expect from that. Now, it might be useful if you don't know something, but we've had children in 3 different states, so it's not like it would be very helpful in that regard, because me and Devin's ethnicity blend is what it is, regardless of whether we lived in Texas or New York or Iowa or New Mexico. Mm-hmm. And if you want to learn something more about DNA, then check out this video up here. And be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel.